Hello and welcome to the Creatives in Focus podcast. I am Victoria Bola Okerinde, your host. On this podcast, we discuss the journey to excellence and creating for impact. I will be sharing with you conversations with creatives and founders who have real and relatable stories. These amazing individuals are excelling in their fields, doing good, and actively working in their own way to make an impact. This is episode 22. How has your week been? I am currently recording this intro in 30-degree heat. And I do hope you have all had the time to chill out and enjoy the sun. This is not typical British weather. I will be having a week off from my full-time job, and this is also my birthday week, so I'll be spending a lot of it reading and practicing self-care. So on this episode, I caught up with Adobera Ejikeme. She is the founder of Identity Creates, a platform for entry-level creatives to gain insight and access into the creative industry. They do this by providing events, workshops, and interviews for creatives. And Adobera actually graduated with a BA in architecture, and as a result of the lack of support and insight that she experienced when trying to reroute into a branding role, she decided that a change was needed and she founded Identity Create. So what do we discuss in this episode? In this episode, we talk about gaining employment in the creative industry. This is very topical, especially during changing times like this. We talk about going freelance and monetizing your skills. We also speak about how to prepare for changes in the creative industry post-pandemic. This is a juicy episode full of insight, so please grab a nice cool drink, maybe an iced tea, and let's get started. Hello, Adobera.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining me on the Creativesinfocus podcast.
You're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you. Like I said before, I've been stalking your Instagram page, and you're doing some amazing things with your platform, Identity Creates.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So just a little intro for our guests. If you can just tell us a little bit about what you do with Identity Creates and how you got to actually starting this platform.
Okay, cool. So Identity Creates is basically a platform for entry-level creatives that are trying to get into the industry, which we've been able to do through events, but now we're going to be venturing into workshops as well. It's been going for about 9 months. So we started in August 2019, and since then we've had 4 events, 3 physical ones, and then 1 online one since COVID. The main reason why Identity Creates actually started was because I actually studied an architecture degree. And then by second year, I realized it wasn't what I wanted to do. But then when I actually graduated, I had to take a year to soul search and figure out myself, to which I realized I actually loved branding. And then I spent about a year trying to apply for roles, and I didn't get anything. And essentially, I found my way through trial and error. So for example, in the first year where I didn't get anything, I then took the initiative to then start asking my friends, can I do this for you? Can I do this website? Can I do this design? Essentially to build up my portfolio. So then, like I said, first year, I didn't hear anything back. Then into my second year, trying to look for a creative role, I started to hear things back, although unsuccessful. And then I just got to a point where I got frustrated, and I thought, I'm an architecture student trying to transition into branding. I don't have a clue how to get into this industry. I don't know anybody. So you know what? I'm going to create a platform where I can bring creatives to myself through what I'm doing. And essentially, Identity Creates is basically me just trying to answer the questions that I wished I had somebody to tell me. So yeah, that's basically it.
Fantastic.
And how it started.
So amazing. And how long have you guys been running for?
Till date, 9 months.
9 months. Perfect. 9 months to birth a baby. So yes.
I didn't even think about that. That's cool.
Amazing. That sounds amazing. Like you said, you're basically trying to solve a problem that I'm sure a lot of creatives listening to this, or anyone who's trying to break into any industry, can relate with sort of getting either rejections or just not really knowing how to apply, where to apply, and how to build up their portfolio. And I think what you're doing is really, really amazing, offering key advice and access to information with your events. Fantastic.
Thank you.
So right now we are currently in lockdown, and this means that a lot of people are trying to adjust to the new normal. So how has COVID or the pandemic affected how you are operating as Identity Creates?
So I would say actually before COVID, we had plans of workshops that we wanted to plan. But now when COVID happened, it was like, oh, okay, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to run those workshops? But I think with the joy of Zoom and everything, it's made it easier. So like I said, we had our first virtual talk. For me, that was a bit daunting because I thought, why would anybody want to sit on the internet for an hour and a half and listen to somebody talk? But it was actually quite amazing. If anything, one thing I learned was that the virtual events actually opened us to a reach that we never would have had. Like, for example, we had people from Italy, Paris, and New York tune into it.
Amazing.
That was amazing for me because now it's let me know that this thing I'm doing is limitless. Like, it goes beyond just the UK. So if anything, I would say like it birthed a positive, although it started as a negative. So
I like that. It birthed a positive. And that's how we should look at, what is going on at the moment. I know it's really devastating. However, we have no other choice but to adapt. So it's really great to hear. It's really, really great to hear that, your event went well. And were you working from home before? In terms of Identity Creates, where like is your office space or your workspace, is that at home, or did you have to kind of like move things?
So I actually had a membership for a co-working space. Essentially, I worked between home and sometimes I went there if I wanted to focus. And I think I also got the co-working space because, say, for example, I wanted to speak to a potential client or somebody I was trying to get on board. I couldn't bring them to my house, but there's something more valuable about meeting somebody face to face. So I wanted to have an actual base to go to. So
fantastic. That's really great. Okay, so just continuing on with our conversation, you mentioned, you were trying to break into the creative industry. Well, to be honest with you, you already kind of started within a sort of creative arts degree, which is architecture. But you did mention sort of frustration. And over the past 9 months, you've had access to listen to conversations and listen to young people trying to break into the creative industry. Can you give us kind of an insight into the common themes or questions that have been raised over the last 9 months?
Some of the common questions is that people just don't know essentially how to get these roles. I think one of the main things that I can resonate with is that you find that there are people who've been looking for jobs for over 1 year, over 2 years. And most times it's like you just have to do a side hustle till you finally get that one thing. And I think the biggest thing for entry talent is actually trying to make that break in. That is the hardest part, because once you get in, then you can keep on going. But the hardest part is always getting in, and that's the main question. How do I? So, but however, I think something that I've learned from actually this game is that it's, as sad as it sounds, it's a networking thing. Like, it's almost about who you know. And it's not something that's done intentionally. It's just the way it is. So another thing that makes Identity Creates great is that it allows you to network, because you never know who you're next to. You could be a person away from your next role or something. So it's literally a networking thing. You have to keep on building your network in order to eventually get that role that you want. It's just the way it is, to be honest.
You raise a really important point about networking. I think in any industry, you need to, speak to your peers, speak to people ahead of you, learn about opportunities as well. But do you think it's also about a knowledge gap or a skill gap among creative professionals or aspiring professionals?
That's an interesting one. I think it's probably a knowledge thing. If you don't know, you won't know how to cross that bridge. I didn't know, but it took me trying to find a way to realize what it is or how to probably do it. And I think identity creates has helped me, because if I'm trying to progress it, it means that I need to have conversations with people. And as I have conversations with different people, I'm learning how their journey got them to where they're at. So I think it's a knowledge thing. If you don't know, you won't know how to progress. And I think that's where the issue is. There needs to be more insight from a younger age, so that it's not just when you're graduating, that's when you're starting your journey to figure life out. You should have been, like, we should have those systems put in place from secondary school. Like, there should be things where you're being taught from an early age, like, oh, okay, I noticed you like drawing. Have you been told about this thing? Try this thing out where you can explore your skills. It's like education is so standardized that we're not taught how to focus and like pinpoint where our talents lie. So
I think, you're definitely right. I remember in secondary school doing just a random survey, and it told me that I was meant to be a hairdresser, like just for, I know. Wow. So I think, I know. I mean, I did like making hair, but I mean, no,
that's not what
there's nothing wrong with hairdressing.
Exactly.
However, I think there needs to be a bit more focus in speaking and guiding the young people into providing them with knowledge and alternatives in terms of career paths as well. And this is something that I spoke about with a previous guest about sometimes not following a traditional route. Maybe doing an apprenticeship rather than going to uni may work for some people. And I guess sometimes the practical skills may give you an upper hand in the industry in comparison to actually going to uni. So I think that is something to definitely think about for younger people. Okay, so we'll speak about gaining employment, during this time. And I think some of the points that we're going to cover will really help some of our listeners, because at the moment, I mean, individuals are either still working from home or have had to just stop entirely. Some people are looking for second streams of income, and they have something creative that they've been doing on the side. So in terms of gaining employment, what do you think is the best pathway? So I spoke about internships versus uni. In your experience with speaking to different creatives, like what do you think is the best path to actually gaining employment? Having a degree or having, more practical experience?
That's a good question. I think I ask this question all the time whenever I speak to people. I'm like, now, do you think university is relevant, or do you think that trying to find a practical role or an apprenticeship helps? Had I known, or had I been given the opportunity to explore my skills, I probably wouldn't have gone to university. I probably wouldn't have, because, and I think for me it's a bit different because I come from a Nigerian household, so that's not even an option. But do I feel like, what are the routes to gaining employment? I think had I known, probably I would have had more experience from a younger age. And I think that's the one thing that I'll probably recommend. If you're not sure what you want to study, don't go and study anything. If anything, take the time to explore your skills and build up your portfolio, and have enough time to experiment. I think experience is the most important thing. That's where you really learn what it is that you want to do. But then also trying to build up your network. That one, I will keep on going back to it over and over and over again. The network thing is very, very important.
Definitely. Thank you. And in this time, I mean, where are the job opportunities in this time? Should people still be applying for jobs right now?
This is an interesting question, actually, because I had, when we had a virtual talk last week, we had a bit of freelancer where some people are actually looking for roles. His thing is that he keeps on getting roles, and most of the roles that he's getting are mainly from like his fellow friend designers who are like, I've gotten this role, I don't have the capacity to do this. I would go halves on this with you. Can you work on it with me? That's that kind of thing. So it's different for everybody, because for him, where he's talking about, I keep on getting roles, and other people are like, I can't get roles. I think it's just a bit different, to be honest. And I think the situations are a bit different. Yeah.
And sort of like where are the job opportunities, especially for someone who's actually thinking in this time, I actually want to pursue a creative career right now. You know, I'm at home. I've been either like, I can't work from home right now. So like, where can I find a creative job or a creative opportunity?
This is an interesting one. The jobs are there. They're a bit scarce. It's a bit of a tough one because in this time, I don't know how many roles would be able to be given. I mean, if anything, it's probably a slow one. So the best thing I can probably say is that this is probably the time to just keep on improving yourself till at least the job market gets a bit better. But I would say COVID's a bit of a tough one, to be honest.
I guess in some ways, maybe just keep looking at the traditional spaces online. It is a shame because I find that some creative roles are actually not advertised online. And like you said, a lot of it has to do with your networks and actually where the I do know certain platforms actually do post roles regularly. So the BYP the BYP network, they also post regular roles. It may not be within the creative industry, but sometimes some of these are there. So I think it's really honing in on social media at the moment. You know, it's also part of your network, social media, and actually just trying to see what you can get from there as well. And similar to what you have done as a platform, you have created your own job in a way.
Do you know what? I'm so sorry to cut you. I was actually just going to touch on this. I think COVID has, as sad as it is, if anything, it's given us an opportunity to actually be bold and take risks. Sometimes, even if you can't get a job, this is how I see it. Everybody's been given a specific talent. And if you can do something with that, that's where the money lies. At the end of the day, find what you're good at and build off of that. I think that's something that COVID has made me think about, like how to keep on maximizing and going up rather than looking for the next job opportunity. Because if this was to happen again, can I put my hope or can I rely on the system? No, I can't. So it's like, it's made me think more innovatively about how to keep on improving what I have in front of me. How can I keep on improving identity creates to get better to the point where it can become that thing. That's what I say. To be honest, I would say my approach is a little bit different. I'm one of those people, it's a bit difficult because I can't really give a standardized answer because I'm one of those people that just believe that I don't want to be a slave to the system. I literally don't. I don't have that mindset. I wasn't raised like that. So I'm just like, how can I build on my skills? So if I'm speaking to anybody, I'm going to be looking at that thing that makes them unique and trying to advise them on how they can build off of it. Because if you're an artist, you can monetize off your art. But the question is, what is it that's making it difficult for you to monetize off your art? Is it that you don't really have that much of a great connection? You're not really networking? What is it? Because essentially in each of us, we have the ability to make millions. There's nothing that stops us. Nothing makes us different from the people that you see out there.
Fantastic. And then we're gonna go back to actually making money from freelance work. That is a question that I will ask. But continuing with the theme of employment, because like you said, some people are actually getting jobs in this time. Like the example that you mentioned. What do you think employers will be looking for in future employees right now? Like, what are the key skills that employers will be looking for right now, especially within the creative industry?
That's an interesting one. I would say that employers are looking for just difference, like looking like somebody who's part of the mold. It doesn't work anymore, to be honest. Employers are looking for people who can fit that. Essentially, what they're putting out is what they're looking for. Somebody who can go above and beyond, somebody who can do a bit more, someone who just doesn't look like the mold, essentially.
Thank you. And you mentioned above and beyond. And I think in this time, you know, the key things that they'll be asking is, how are you using your time? You know, because we do have an excess of, I mean, we have more time than before. You know, have you developed than before, than ever. I mean, they can ask, you know, have you developed any new skills? Can you actually use what can you use online tools? How do you communicate? Can you use communication software? I think those are the key things that employers will be looking at. How you can adapt to, you know, to technology, because I believe after this, technology will evolve, and we will have to, you know, just keep up, you know, with the trends and learn even more.
The world is going to change.
Yeah, so I think those are the key things, like you mentioned, just doing above and beyond, not, you know, continuing to grow, and employers to see that you are willing to learn and pick up new skills and use your initiative, especially in this time.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to speak about finding your place in the industry. And then we'll move on to freelance work, and how freelancers are doing at the moment. So, I mean, you've given us a little bit of an insight into your journey as an architecture student and moving out of architecture and going into branding. Can you kind of give us a little bit more insight into how you found your place in the creative industry? And if there was any work you had to do, any inner work you had to do, any things you had to overcome to be able to be comfortable and feel like you are really gaining experience and just feeling comfortable within the industry?
I think the first thing that I probably had to overcome is my mind. I had to overcome my mind in the sense where while I was doing that architecture degree, in my heart of hearts, I wasn't happy. Like, you know, when you have those moments when, like, you're doing something that you're literally staying up for, but it's not bringing you joy, kind of thing. Like, for identity creates is one of those things where I can stay up for 2 days and I'll feel no way because it's something that I feel fulfilled doing. I never had that. And essentially it was making me feel depressed.
Okay.
Because, it was.
So you just decided not to practice. So you did your BSc and you just...
I finished the BA level and I was just like, that's it, I'm gone. But I had to get comfortable and be bold in who I was. Even though I knew that that wasn't what I wanted to do. In my heart of hearts, like, I always did this thing where I'm a writer. So I write, like, I'm a visual writer. I'm a visual writer. Wow. I'm a visual learner. And I think, especially because I'm a creative, there's always a lot of things going up in my mind. So essentially, I would always have things like, I like doing this. Like, I would write, this is what I like doing. This is what I'm skilled at, kind of thing. And I always had the idea of what I wanted to do in my head. But because I had never seen it, I was always scared to do it. And one day I just had to make the decision, like, for the fact that this thing is in your head and you keep on referring back to it, just try it, just do it, kind of thing. And I just had to get comfortable and I had to get bold and I just had to do it, even though I didn't know what I was doing. And just hoping eventually that it will lead me on my path. So I'll say the first thing that helped me find my place is being bold in what it was that I was feeling, being bold to execute the thing that I was feeling and actually just action it out. It's not to say, like I said, identity creators has been going on for 9 months. I don't know everything. I'm still learning things. Essentially, this is a passion project that I started. So as I go along, I'm learning bit by bit. And I think that's our biggest problem. We're too scared to make mistakes and we're too scared to take risks. I think to leave architecture and go on this unknown journey has been probably one of the hardest things, because it's meant I've had to leave certainty and security. How do you explain to somebody that you want to leave doing a degree that is clear and has a straightforward path, but when they ask you, what do you want to do? You say, I don't know, but I just know this is not what I want to do. How do you do that? And I think that's our biggest problem, especially in this world. We want security. We don't want to not have money. We don't want to not have it together. But in order to find your place, you have to be ready to go on that unknown walk. If you're not ready to do that, then I don't know what to say.
Wow, amazing. You've given a lot of insight, and I can relate with a lot of what you said. You know, sometimes it can be difficult to, even to yourself, it's difficult to express or explain your yearning for a different career path. But it's knowing that a creative career is a lifelong experience. it doesn't,
Exactly.
your learning doesn't stop. So it's okay not to know everything at the moment. But like you've mentioned with networking, I think you can learn from other people's experience, speaking to them, getting a mentor, learning from their mistakes. And it can make things a little bit easier for you, and you can achieve what you want to achieve a little bit quicker than you kind of striving and struggling on your own. And I think in terms of finding your place within the creative industry, I think is always striving for excellence. I know this word is thrown around a lot, but I think it's incredibly important to ensure that even though you are learning, people can still see like value in your work. They can still see that, like you said, going the extra mile. They can still see that you're someone who is hardworking, is trustworthy, and they can rely on you. So when you do actually get that space within the creative industry, I guess is kind of just ensuring you're working hard and your work is excellent.
Yeah, exactly. The world thrives off excellence.
Fantastic. So, I mean, continuing with finding your place within the industry, I mean, for being part of the ethnic minority group, we find that equality and diversity in the creative industry is still something that, brings about a lot of conversation. And I think there was a recent report by IPA, and they stated that a proportion of staff in UK agencies from Black, Asian, minority backgrounds, the proportion has actually fallen from previous years in terms of seniority within the creative industries. And I think, although there is some progress being made, I think this is something that, still needs to be talked about. And I don't know if you can provide some insight into diversity and equality within the creative industry and how you can position yourself to not, be at a disadvantage.
Do you know what? This is actually such an interesting topic. This is such an interesting topic because this has been my recent rant to my friends. Like, so just listen to this. So we've had 4 events, and in that time, I'm a Black girl, essentially, and I run Identity Creates. But whenever we put out an event and I look through the attendee list, there's probably 10% BAME. There's probably about 10% of the attendee list that are from a BAME background. And for me, that baffles me. I just don't understand. And these are questions that even myself, I'm trying to understand. It's like, how am I a Black girl running this? And essentially, I'm putting this out for the community, but my community, or many, are not the ones that I'm seeing on the list. So it's made me think, what is the issue? Like, why are we not able to find these platforms where things are going on? And I think it probably goes back to our beginning conversation of having these kind of things running in schools. And having these kind of things running from a younger age, because essentially it seems like you said, it seems like more of a knowledge thing. Like people just actually don't know that these platforms are accessible to them. Or essentially, if you don't have people within your friendship or networking groups that know about these things, then how will you know? I think that's what I would say about that, to be honest. For me, it's baffling because with the events, I don't even see much of my own people at my own events. And I think it's now made me think that essentially to go and look for my own kind of people to bring them, because I can't actually find them when I put out things, if that makes sense.
That's very insightful, actually. I don't know. I don't even know how to respond to that. It's difficult. And I don't know.
I'm still trying to find out how to respond to it.
Yeah, I think it's... Yeah, I think as a Black girl myself, I think sort of it goes back to mentality as well. I think it's important as young Black, people of ethnic minority to really invest in themselves. And if it means you paying to go to an event and not always seeking to go to a free event, and investing is not only about money, investing in time, the time it takes for you to sit, and listen and gain knowledge from a panel of people who are already in the industry. That's very valuable. So yeah, I think in terms of positioning yourself as a Bain person who wants to get into the creative industries, really invest in yourself.
Can I also add something as well?
Yeah.
Something I wanted to say, just another note, is that we shouldn't be intimidated. It's very easy to be intimidated by the fact that those who currently work there don't look like the color of our skin. But essentially, it's just to remember that there's just still human beings like us. You might be the only one there, okay, that's fine. But not being intimidated to be the only one there, it's okay. So that's what I'd say.
Fantastic. And I think it also goes back to, if you are in a position to help other people, to mentor other people, to let other people know about opportunities, or to even tell your story, because now social media makes it so easy for you to sit in front of your phone on Instagram and just say, hey guys, this is my story. I think that is another way to ensure that, you know, other people behind you perhaps will find it easier gaining access to certain industries, especially within the creative sector, that have kind of been, you know, for a certain group of people. So we're going to move on to freelance, because freelance work and how freelancers are doing right now, because I guess, you know, I think it's, like you said, finding the positive out of the negative. And I've seen so many amazing stories of freelancers actually doing amazing in this time. I don't know if you know Papachi. I don't know. I hope I'm saying her name right. Yeah. I mean, it's so amazing seeing, you know, she's a hairstylist as well as a makeup artist, but she launched a product, and in this time it's like, you know, it's done really well with the launch of her hot comb. And we see other creatives doing amazing and still doing well in this time. So you also had an event on Saturday, which was titled Going Freelance and Monetizing Your Skills. So can you give us a bit of advice on, number one, going freelance, and number two, monetizing your skills?
So to go freelance, essentially, like I said, this is going to be my key advice through this whole interview. Some of the main things that Ben raised was about actually spending the time to speak with people, spending the time to start conversations, finding brands that you genuinely actually like. And for example, like he shared something like how he is always on LinkedIn. So he would go on LinkedIn and probably look for, let's say, the marketing manager or something, essentially, and connect with them and just make genuine conversation with them. Not exactly going straight in like, oh, hi, I'm looking for a role kind of thing, but actually like, I'm actually kind of interested in this. Oh, I'd love to know a bit more. Actually getting to know people and creating that time to actually sit down and speak with people. Another thing is that essentially when you're starting out, the jobs probably wouldn't come immediately, because essentially at the beginning it's about forming relationships. And as you build relationships, eventually that's what's going to lead to that thing. So to go freelance at first, it's like you have to make a small investment of your time, of actually, you know, getting to know people. And then essentially that's what will then grow into eventually you trying to obtain clients and stuff, because it's all about a relationship thing. What's the second question? So going freelance and monetizing your skills. I'll probably say the two go hand in hand, to be honest. Because when people know what you do, essentially they'll bring you on to do those projects. But like I said, I think my key advice during this whole thing is about networking, connecting and building relationships. You can have the most skill, but if nobody knows about the skill, then there's nothing you can do about it. So the two kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the phrase, I attended like a marketing and branding workshop by JC May, and she did something. She says, nobody can see you back there. So like, you know, if you're doing your own little thing, you're doing your own little thing in the back, nobody, I mean, people may say, oh, that's so amazing. That's so lovely. That's such a lovely, you know, like painting. That's nice. But until you say, hey guys, I'm doing, you know, little prints for $12.99. It's going to be on my store. do you want to purchase it, available for pre-order? That's when people actually see you as a business, as, you know, that's you monetizing your skills. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things out there in terms of actually starting a business and monetizing what you already have. But I think one key thing is actually providing value. I mean, yeah, people, you know, want to buy things of to give them comfort or entertainment, but ensure you're providing value, which means that your customers will come back, they will refer. And that means, you know, your business will grow. As a freelancer is really important, you know, having regular customers, regular clients, especially at this time.
Even just like you said, that's an amazing point actually. So even when you're beginning, I remember my mentor was basically talking about essentially giving more than what you're charging. So making sure that your value is higher than what you're even giving somebody. So going above and beyond, essentially, especially at the beginning, like it's not because you're making a small fee that you do shabby work. Still put your best in, essentially, still have good communication, good customer service, you know, those kind of things will leave a lasting mark than just trying to make a check.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess this pandemic has really shaken things up. I mean, it's created one of the largest financial crises that freelancers have encountered in modern history, especially with a lot of workplaces being closed. And earning an income can be difficult for some freelancers. So are you aware of any financial support or resources that are available for freelancers right now?
I don't know if this is probably the right name, but stuff like Creative England, I know that they do funding, but yeah, I'll say probably Creative England, if anything, and I hope I'm even getting the name right.
Yeah, I mean, going back to financial support, similar to our previous guests, I think it's, you know, actually tapping into what the government already have available for businesses.
Basically.
So, I mean, they have the self-employment scheme that was announced on the 26th of March. So tapping into that if you're eligible for that. And I do know you mentioned a creative platform, but a creative organization, but I do know that the Creative Industries Federation, they have a list of materials and resources. So we will put that in the show notes or link it on our Instagram for people to actually go and look at that list. And are you aware of any, like, what can well-being support look like for freelancers? Are you aware of how freelancers can actually, you know, any support for them in terms of their well-being?
Is that just general advice, you mean?
Yeah, like, have you seen any communities or, you know, do you have any advice as, you know, a business owner in terms of keeping up your well-being?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I wouldn't say that I know of organizations. However, probably with keeping updated with your well-being. I think first things first, know where your trigger points are, know when your limits are. Essentially, as a freelancer, if you're feeling overwhelmed, can you find people who you can outsource work to? Not taking on too much things. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, speaking out. Clients aren't crazy, they're understanding. Be honest about where you're at. You know, I think the most important thing is probably just speaking up.
Fantastic. Yeah, speaking up and, like, you know, reaching out to other, you know, freelancers. I do know sometimes there are like Facebook groups as well for like different, you know, photographers, or if you're a makeup artist, kind of like joining them and hearing, kind of seeing other people do amazing things that can lift your spirits. And you can, you know, gain more insight or even more job opportunities through that. And I think it's also tapping into what is available. You know, they've got the Mental Health Foundation, which they have guidance on like keeping up your mental health in this time. There's also Mind online as well, which has a lot of resources on how you can keep up. I mean, and this can be used even if you're not a freelancer.
It's crazy. There's one brand that I'm thinking of. I literally cannot remember the name right now. Ugh, that's so tragic.
That's okay. That's okay. Amazing. Okay, so we have just a few questions. Let's talk more about the creative industry and the pandemic. Like you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
seeing the positive, out of what's been going on. And I
Yeah.
just want to know if you know of any, creatives or any examples of the creative industry kind of spreading hope and positivity in this time.
I would say Glug.
Okay.
Glug. They've been putting out a whole bunch, and they've been working on some great projects.
Mm.
They've been working on a project called At Home With. So basically, think about MTV Cribs. They've basically been doing that with creatives, like different creative leaders, going into their houses, giving you a tour around, and working you through like the different projects. They're basically trying to take their events and basically bringing it home, kind of thing. I would say the kind of things that have been spreading positivity is just seeing how the industry has just kept on going, how the industry is, if anything, solidified during that time. Things like the dots, like making posting
Yeah.
freelance roles free, those kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Just in general, how like brands have actually been accepting of the pandemic, and for example, like putting a hold on membership or putting a hold on a software plan. I think the most beautiful thing for me, if anything, that has probably given me the most hope in the creative industry is how the industry is knitted together to support the community. I would say that's, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think it's so great, like what you mentioned, especially in terms of the body of creative professionals. So you have like trade unions and some other agencies like suspending subscription for 6 months. You just have because everyone's kind of in the same boat. Even if you're working, it's like things are still a bit tight at the moment. So yeah, and I think in this time, the creative industries actually, we need to come together to actually share how COVID is impacting the sector. So, like, do you have any ideas of how people are actually sharing the impact of COVID-19 on the sector? Because I know I've seen a few surveys, but have you seen anything interesting out there?
I would say, to be honest, I was actually going to add to this, just going back to your previous questions. I don't know how active you are on the Dots, but the Dots has, like, the community there has been amazing. Like, the support there has been absolutely amazing. And to be honest, it goes back to the question you asked, would say, like, funding, or, for example, like, if you need support, let's say, with your portfolio to be looked over, the Dots essentially has been where I've been the most, because there, especially in their Ask section, like the community is so strong. Anything you ask, like the support just floods in. And the team there have been absolutely amazing to support the community. So actually, if I would say one thing, the Dots has actually been where I've been the most, because the community there has been absolutely amazing.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm gonna have to, we'll put that in the show
Check them
notes, and
out.
I'll have to dig deeper into the Dots as well.
Check them out.
Fantastic.
They're awesome.
Fantastic. And like you mentioned, sharing information during this time. Yeah, and I think there's the public are doing amazing things, sharing videos and different things out there.
Yeah.
So there is communication. But I think over the next few months, it'd be interesting to see what the data is in terms of all the data collection with surveys, and actually seeing how that will impact, life after the pandemic, in terms of the creative industry, in terms of how things are working, in terms of policies as well that are going to be put into place, for the government. And
I'm interested to see how the industry is going to come back together, like how things are going to change, what the next set of creativity or creatives are going to look like, just how the world is going to adapt to it, to be honest. It's an interesting one.
And I think only time will be able to tell, really. But I think there's some innovative things happening right now. So it's only,
What are
it's
some
the
cool
tip of the
things that
iceberg.
you're seeing? Like, what are some things that have stood out to you about the industry per se?
I would say, I think, is people's bringing their brands online. So in terms of, going to the audience, in terms of Instagram lives. I've been enjoying that, although it feels a little bit overwhelming at the moment. But it's actually, like everyone is actually making 3 times effort or 4 times the effort of creating content and trying to engage with people. I've seen that in different ways. Instagram lives. I've seen that, taking people off the internet and taking them onto Zoom. But what I've seen is people creating things or engaging with their audience in ways that they wouldn't in the past. I've seen brands and individuals who are quite shy or, who don't want to show their face. There's some brands that are just, this is the brand, but then the owners of the brands or the founders of the brands having to come out of the shadows and actually, show their face and engage with people a lot more because they really want that human connection at the moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
that's actually a really true point.
Yeah. So for me, I think those are one of the things. Sorry, my mind has gone blank. I'm sure I have tons of examples.
No, it happens. It's okay.
But I think for me, it's actually just the evolution in terms of how people are engaging, with their audience. But I read into the fashion industry quite a lot, and the beauty industry. And like I was saying to our previous guest, there was a lady who devised like an app or something that women could try on lipsticks. So literally you just swipe and it, takes the profile of your face.
That's innovative. I need that, to be honest.
Yeah. It's amazing because you can go to the shops, but then you don't want to try the testers. So, it's kind of a way for you, it provides an opportunity for you to shop and use products, so those are some of the cool things that I've seen at the moment. I've seen brands repurpose their fabric for face masks, or obviously the fashion industry deciding to turn their factories into factories to be making PPE. So these are some of the cool things that I've seen in terms of collaborative work within the creative industry. So just 3 more questions, should I say? So what can
go for it?
So what can the creative industry learn from this crisis? I think we've touched on it a little bit, but is there anything else that you have for us?
I think if anything, I'll probably just say trying to think outside of the box, because we've literally been pushed into a corner, and it's how do I make something in this box? So just something to get the mind going and not to be reliant on what we see as is. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I think there's so much to learn from this crisis in terms of valuing your employers and the well-being, ensuring that they're resilient and they're able to handle anything in terms of the company. I think it's as small brands or freelancers or individuals who have employers underneath them, also knowing that you need to have a backup plan, especially for your employers, because thank God the government stepped in, but
that's a very good point you actually raised. Thank God the government stepped in, but imagine if they didn't. This would have been like, COVID is a pandemic, but the effects of it would have been a pandemic.
I think there's just so much to learn, and I'm in some ways with this, like you said, the change is going to be evident, and hopefully we will change for the better and not go back to our old ways.
I believe we will.
Yeah. And in terms of I was going to ask, what opportunities will this pandemic bring?
In what sense do you mean? Do you mean generally,
in terms of within the creative industry? So opportunities in the way for people, in the way things work, industry.
I think there'll probably be more opportunity for flexible working, and more ease. There'll probably be more discussions about well-being, mental health care for your team. I think those are the opportunities that it will bring, if I should say any. Yeah,
I think there will be a lot of opportunities, especially with stimulating cultural production, or creative industries within the UK, investing back into creative craft. Okay, so what is next for you as the founder of Identity Creates? What do you see in the future?
What do I see in the future? I think for me, I see more of the community. So not just events, but we really want to bring the community together. Essentially, we want it to be the one-stop hub for entry-level creatives. Every single thing you would need as a creative, from information to experience to community to network, we want to be able to be that one-stop place. So now we're currently trying to work on workshops. The events are great and we're still going to do them, but now we want to venture into workshops, small intimate groups where you can actually get first-hand advice and information and support. So those are the kind of things that we're working on. We do have other plans, but we are holding a bit on that till we share. But essentially, we want to become the one-stop place for entry-level creatives. And I don't just see it as a UK thing. I see it in Africa. I see it in to venture into Europe. I see it to venture into America. The amazing thing about Identity Creates is that there's no, it's not limited to a geographical location. So I'm excited to get to the point where we can take it out there and grow it to a point where the mantle can start in a different place.
Fantastic. Yeah. Amazing things on the horizon. Amazing. And
I'm
where
excited.
Can our, yes, definitely. And where can our audience connect with you?
You can connect with us on Instagram at We Are Identity Creates. You can also connect with us on the dots at Identity Creates. That's where we always post all our events. So you can just follow us and you'll always get an update. You can connect with us on www.weareidentitycreates.com. And you can also connect with us on Twitter at WeAreICCreates.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Adobera. It's been so fantastic hearing you speak and giving us a little bit of insight into how creatives and freelancers can thrive in this time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
You're welcome.
This has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode on the Creativesinfocus podcast. I really hope this episode has been useful to you. I definitely picked up a lot of things. A point that I picked up, and Adobera actually raised this a few times, is the importance of networking. I know that we can't network in person at the moment, but I do challenge you this month, to reach out online to someone in your industry or in the industry that you want to gain access to. You can simply ask them for advice. And if they have the expertise, they could actually, be your mentor. So yes, take the step, and I'm sure it will lead to amazing results. I hope you are enjoying season 2. We're only 2 episodes in, but I'm really excited to bring more insightful conversations. So watch out for our uploads on the podcast and on YouTube as well. And also weekly, we put up content on our Instagram page at Creativesinfocus. If you have enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and don't forget to share this episodes with your friends. Yes, we want a lot of people listening and just learning and hearing from you guys. So please, we would really appreciate your support. Until next time, influence change and create for impact.